So how's everybody? How was the weekend? Cool. Cool. So some of you have sent me your groups, not all of you have. So we need to set groups for the rest of the folks in here. So Saud Abdulaziz, do you have a group? You do? Who's in your group? Huh?
You asked me to double check his last name? Oh, Gisela.
Huh?
I emailed you, Gisela.
Yes, but Saud Abdulaziz is not the name that you sent me.
That's the name you wrote.
Okay, I see. I see.
She dropped this guy, but I'm still in their group.
Okay, I got it. I got it now. How about Liliana Adame? Not here? Liliana? Oh, yeah, okay. Mohammed Al-Shaiban. You have a group? Who's in your group? Hang on. Tell me your names.
Me?
Mohammed Al-Shaiban, yes.
Yes.
Huh?
Diego Cisneros.
Cisneros? Okay, hang on 1 second. Who else?
Newman.
Huh?
Knife Newman.
Newman. Okay, who else?
Knife Hashim. He's not here yet.
The other knife.
Is that it?
Nestor, I'm trying to do class.
What's that?
Nestor? But I'm not in your class yet.
You're not? What's your last name? Lopez?
I was trying to add the class.
Yeah, I think you're in here. Oh, I see. You're in one of my other classes, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on, let me add that. Okay. Is that it for the group? Okay. Badr Al-Ansi.
Yes.
Do you have a group?
Yes.
Who's in your group?
Abdul and
Huh?
Eduardo.
Edward, what's his last name?
Estrada.
Ah, Eduardo Estrada. Okay, hang on. Hang on. Wait, it's right. I thought I was in Group G or Group D. Oh, you did? Okay. So now you're in Group G. You're in their group, not their group. So you're not in their group anymore. That's okay. So you're D. Who else? Maybe it'll be easier to give me the sheet. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Eduardo and me. Now if he switched to a different group, so we still need 5.
So you got 3 right now.
4.
Because Eduardo switched to another group.
Oh, he switched?
You got 3.
Yeah. Nice he changed.
Yes. So Abdul Rahman. Yep. G. Simmer and you. Okay.
With 2.
Abdul Rahman Al Balawi. Are you here? No. Abdul Rahman Al Balawi? Yes. You need a group.
Yeah.
Do you have a group?
No.
Okay, you still need one?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else still needs a group? Okay, let me see. 1, 2, stay, put your hands up again. I'm going to put the 3 of you guys in a group. You need a group too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and the 3 of you in a group. Okay? So, Abdul Rahman Al Balawi. And then what are the other 2 names? Mashari, right?
Sure, yeah.
And then what's your name? Fahad? Huh? Al-Raji. Yep, I see it. Okay, Alyssa, hang on 1 second. And you guys, Antonio? And what's your name? Victor. Victor? What's your last name? Santiago. Got it. Okay. Abdul Aziz Abdul Raifani. Not here? Okay. Muhammad Al Khamis. Not here. Fahad Al Multairi. Not here. Muhammad Al Rumi. Not here. Nawaf Al Shamiri. Also not here. Saleh Al Sugair. Eric Garza. Do you have a group?
Yeah.
Who's in your group?
Those 4 right here. I emailed you.
You did?
Yeah.
When?
Like 5 minutes ago.
5? Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Julietta Torres?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. So we're missing a couple, but only the people that aren't here. How's it going? I am good. What's your name?
Summer?
Simmer? Okay. You're in a group already, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's that for groups. I have an announcement to make. How many people in here are interested in going into accounting? A couple. The Cal CPA organization is having a mentoring event tonight at let's see here. It's at Temblor Brewing Company at 6 p.m. So anybody that's interested, there's a networking event for the Cal CPA Association. It's basically the industry association of CPAs here in the area. That's going on from 6 to 8:30 at Temblor Brewing Company. It's a good opportunity for networking. So that's that. Now we talk about external analysis. Going back to the syllabus again to kind of orient us. So the first week we had the introduction lecture, all that good stuff about handbrake strategy and immersion strategy and things like that. We talked about professional image development and your professional development plans. That was the first week. Second week was talking about what the homework's going to be like. So the case analysis template and the Globus simulation that you're going to be doing in your groups. So those two things are the lion's share of your homework. And now, starting this week, I'll get into lectures on various topics from the text, various topics that are important in business strategy. So we're talking about external analysis today. So, I want to talk a bit about industries. Most of the external analysis that we're going to be doing in this class is at an industry level. So, taking a look at things that affect the entire industry as a whole. How many people in here are familiar with the website NAICS.com? Okay. NAICS stands for North American Industrial Classification System, and it's a way of categorizing all businesses by what industry they're in. So if we go there quickly, you'll notice a bunch of different information and then find your NAICS code. So if you click on find your NAICS code, you can see in general, the codes start with 2 digits. The ones are for agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting. 2-1, codes that start with 2-1 are mining industries. 2-2 are utilities, etc., all the way down through public administration, which starts with 9-2. These codes are more than 2 digits. The overall industries start with 2 digits, but you can see here soybean farming, for example, is 111110. Rice farming 111160. Every industry that you can mushroom production 111411. Any industry you can imagine has a code associated with it that allows us to get a lot of general information about that industry for the case analysis template, for research in general on business strategy. So, in addition to this overall list, we can also type in the name of the industry. So if I want software, for example, there's a lot of different industries that have software in the title. Software and other pre-recorded CD, tape, and record reproducing. Electronic stores, so that's kind of the retail side of buying software. Software publishers, which is more the code development and companies like Microsoft. Computer training, so you can find a lot of different industries that have something to do with software just by going in and searching on that term. So the nice thing is with that code, you can find a lot of information on all the companies that are in a certain industry. Some of the major competitors in the industry, some of the major issues facing that industry. Industries tend to all be focused on, all the companies in a certain industry tend to be focused on similar goals. They've got similar opportunities and threats, and they've got similar strategies and investments that they follow. So being able to look up overall information on the industry is quite helpful. If we go back, see if we can get the library databases to work today. This is promising. So let's try Mgmt Online. So Mgmt Online is one of the databases that we have access to. It tells you a lot of information about all the companies in the industry, a lot of overview information. And you can search, you can see here, by primary NAICS code. So you can also search by a company name in here. So if you wanted to find out the revenues or the number of employees of a company that you were looking at as a competitor, perhaps, you just type in the name of the competitor here, and it comes up as well. Hopefully, the database is not 100% complete, but it does have a lot in it. So, primary NAICS. If we go back here to 312111, I believe that is like soda bottling. So this brings up every company in that database that is involved in one way or another in that industry, in soda bottling. So if you click on an individual record, it'll give you some basic information about the sales volume, sometimes the number of employees. So 15 employees, 3 million in sales volume. It's a small company in Canada called What's that?
Full employees or like part-time employees?
It's whatever the company reported to the people from Mgmt when they called. the numbers in this database are kind of ballpark. Sometimes they reflect temps, sometimes they reflect just FTEs. It's kind of an inexact database. So anyway, that's one way to find information about various industries. Another, which we're going to get into today, is first research industry profiles. And same thing, you can either search on the code or on the name of the industry. So if we search again on 312111, non-alcoholic beverage manufacturing. So this pulls up reports about that industry. So this is a little bit old, from 2012. See if we can find something more recent, 2011, 2010, 2016, soft drink manufacturing. Let's take a look at that. So this is a report with everything you ever wanted to know about the soft drink manufacturing business. So just by pulling up that code, we've got an overview of the industry. Companies in this industry manufacture soft drinks. Major companies include, so it tells you kind of about the major competitors in the industry. Tells you about products, operations, and technology in the industry, sales and marketing, finance and regulations, etc., quarterly industry update, industry indicators, forecasts, drivers, critical issues, business challenges, business trends. We're going to use these for our driving forces analysis that we're going to do and walk through a little bit later in the class. Great reports for overall information about the industry. So some of the characteristics that an industry, all the companies in an industry have in common, they all are targeting one size of market, and that market is growing at a certain rate. The number of buyers in the market is the same for all members of the industry. Buyer needs and requirements are the same. The scope of competitive rivalry, so how many competitors there are in the industry, is an important factor of what an industry looks like. The number and size of competitors kind of goes along with scope of competitive rivalry. Degree of product differentiation, so the degree to which there's different niches of products, different products with different features is something that's unique to each industry. Product innovation tends to be more intense in some industries and less intense in others. Production capacity, so some industries have a large set base of production capacity. Others that are sometimes more emerging industries don't have as much production base that's set. Prevalence of backward and forward integration. So we'll talk about those in another class later this semester. But the extent to which companies in the industry buy other companies that are part of their distribution or part of their retail or part of their supply network is a trend that varies by industry. Entry and exit barriers. So each industry has certain features that make it sometimes more difficult to get into or easier to get into. A lot of that has to do with the amount of capital that you need to start up a company in that industry. The nature and pace of technological change. This is a really big one that affects all industries, but each industry in different ways. The way that technology is changing in any given industry is an important trend to consider about that industry. Scale economies and experience curve effects. So the extent to which a larger operation is able to achieve economies of scope or economies of scale is different depending on the industry. And then profitability. So how much money you can actually make at the end of the day is also different by industry. So the first concept I want to talk about today, and this is actually part of your homework template, is driving forces. Driving forces are external influences acting to reshape an industry landscape and alter competitive conditions. So these are big picture topics about the future of the industry. So, for example, when you're analyzing driving forces, you want to think about changes that are going to take place in the industry within 1 to 3 years. So we're not talking about driving forces that happen 20 or 30 years from now, and we're not talking about things that happen in the next couple of months. We're talking about changes that are going to occur in a given industry within 1 to 3 years. And there's usually no more than 3 or 4 major factors that really qualify as drivers of change. The way you determine the extent to which they are drivers of change, ask yourself, does the force in question cause demand for a product to increase or decrease? So if it causes demand for the products in the industry to increase or decrease, that's going to be a more important factor. Is it going to make competition less intense? So is there some factor which is making more competitors come into the industry or making competitors leave the industry? That's going to be another important factor. And then finally, is the force in question going to lead to higher or lower profitability in the industry? So an example of a driving force that altered profitability in the music business is it's really the advent of easy downloads. So the download market pretty much destroyed the market for CDs. And there's other ways to make money in the music business, in particular placing music in advertisements and films and so forth. That's actually a better profit margin. But the industry have shifted more towards exploiting music and intellectual property through the publishing side of things, through placement in movies, placement in TV advertisements, because of the advent of MP3 technology or MP4 technology now, and that altered the profitability of the music industry. So, and then finally, once you've determined what the main strategic factors are that are influencing your industry, determine what strategy changes your company needs to engage in to prepare for the impact of those driving forces. So there's a number of different types of driving forces. This is a nice map of both driving forces and Porter's 5 forces, 2 of the main topics that we're going to talk about today. So driving forces of change that we just talked about are on the outside of this map, and then Porter's 5 forces, the concept that we're going to talk about next, is on the inside of this map. So there's economic factors that sometimes are driving factors of driving forces. There's sometimes physical factors, sometimes they're demographic, sometimes they're sociocultural, sometimes they're political and legal, sometimes they're global. So things that have to do with changing nature of international boundaries, and then technological issues are a big driver of change. So some examples in the demographic segment, things like population size or the age structure of people in a certain market. So the age structure of the United States, for example, had a big boom in baby boomers, and then a smaller generation of Generation X, people like me, and then a large influx of millennials again. So things like the age structure of the society are an example of demographic factors that might be drivers of change. Geographic distribution, so how spread out companies are. Ethnic mix or geographic distribution for demographics, how spread out people are, excuse me. Ethnic mix, so what are the different ethnic groups that make up a certain culture or a certain marketplace for goods and services? What's the income distribution? Do you have a lot of middle class people? Do you have a larger upper class? Do you have a really high or really large lower class? Like has been the case in Brazil for a lot of the past. Those are some of the factors that are demographic factors. Economic factors, inflation rate, interest rates, trade deficits or surpluses that one country will have with another. Budget deficits at the federal or state or local government level. Deficits or surpluses in public budgets. Personal savings rates. So different countries, different markets have different rates of saving by people in the society. Some societies have individuals who tend to save their money more. Other societies tend to have people who spend money more. Business savings rate, gross domestic product, some other examples of the economic segment. The political and legal segment, so antitrust laws, the laws that affect how big companies can get before they're too big for a certain industry. Taxation laws, so what the business and personal tax codes are of a certain marketplace. Deregulation philosophies, so sometimes you'll have an industry which was very highly regulated, and the government will decide to relax those regulations a lot. That could be a major driver of change. Labor training laws, educational philosophies and policies, some other things that are part of the political legal segment. Sociocultural segment, the percentage of women in the workforce, for one example. There's different levels of participation in different countries and different cultures around the world. Workforce diversity, so how many different ethnic groups, how many different income and socioeconomic backgrounds, how many different educational backgrounds that people have in the workforce. In certain industries, there tends to be a more diverse workforce than others. Attitudes about the quality of work life can change. I think internal motivation and satisfaction that the job you're doing actually means something is more important to this generation than it was a generation or two ago. So attitudes about the quality of work life changing can change the availability of employees in the workforce. Shifts in work and career preferences, shifts in preferences regarding product and service characteristics, some of the sociocultural elements, technological, product innovations. So when tablets first came out, that was a major innovation over laptops. Increasingly, much of the normal power of a laptop is being transferred to your phone, so you can do large amounts of the computing that you need to do every day on your phone rather than even having a laptop. So innovations in products tend to be an important type of technological change over time. Applications of knowledge, focus on private and government-supported R&D expenditures. So sometimes there's particularly strong investment from the government in R&D in certain areas, certain industries that are supported heavily by the government for research and development. New communication technologies. So the extent to which Skype is in common usage has made a lot of changes in telecommuting practices and the ability to have meetings remotely. It's changed a lot of factors about organizational structure in a lot of industries. Global segment, important political events. So big changes in politics around the world. The changes of a lot of governments in North Africa and the Middle East has been a major political factor that's happened lately. There's continuing change in how China positions themselves in the world markets. So sometimes important political events, critical global markets, newly industrialized countries. So there's a term called BRIC. I think it's Brazil, Russia, India, China. Yeah, the BRIC countries. So countries that have relatively recently made a major shift in their industrialization. That could be an important factor in the global segment. Different cultural, institutional attributes. And then finally, the physical environment. Energy consumption differs in different industries, differs in different markets across the world. Practices used to develop energy resources, so related to energy consumption. Different energy prospecting methods are different in different marketplaces. Renewable energy efforts can be different in different industries, different countries around the world. Minimizing a firm's environmental footprint. There's going to be some industries where that's more important to firms in that industry than others. Availability of water as a resource changes depending on where we are around the world. Producing environmentally friendly products. Also, there's certain places in the world that are more sensitive to production of environmentally friendly products than others, and reacting to natural and man-made disasters. So things like Hurricane Harvey or Hurricane Irma impact industry-wide issues at times. So that's the concept of driving forces. The concept of Porter's 5 forces. How many people in here have heard of Porter's 5 forces? Okay, so it's new. There's a guy named Porter. He's a professor at Harvard, and he came up with a method for looking at the structure of any given industry by looking at 5 different forces. This is one of the most common frameworks for assessing the structure of an industry. So the 5 forces are, first of all, buyer power. In particular, the thing that's important about buyer power is how many buyers are there in a certain market, and how high or how low are the switching costs for customers. So is it expensive to switch between one product or another, or is it pretty easy to switch between one product and another? That determines the power of buyers. If buyers can switch from one product to another really easily, they have more power. If they can't switch very easily from one product to another, they have less power. The fewer buyers there are, the more power each individual buyer tends to have. If there's a lot of buyers, no one individual buyer has very much power. Supplier power. Similar questions as with buyer power. How many suppliers are there, and how high and low are the switching costs for companies? So as opposed to, like, if we look at the computer hardware industry, the buyers are the end users, are you guys, the ones that own the laptops. Suppliers are not HP or IBM or Apple. The suppliers are Pentium, people that make the chips, people that make the various components that go into the computer. So the more different suppliers there are of silicone chips, the more different suppliers there are, of the various hardware components that go into a laptop or a desktop. The more of those suppliers there are, the less power any one of them tends to have. If there's only one supplier of screens, for example, to laptop companies, that supplier tends to have a lot of power. Threat of new entrants. So the third force in examining the structure of an industry is how easy is it or how hard is it for new companies to get into the industry? In particular, what are the cost and bandwidth barriers to entry? So some industries have really, really high costs that you have to incur in order to get into the industry in the first place. So aerospace, for example, I can't just go and start an aerospace company in my garage. I need huge amounts of money to make jet engines and airframes and stuff like that. So that's an industry with a very high barrier to entry with cost. Some other industries may be very easy to get into cost-wise, but they are harder to get into in terms of bandwidth or space available for new competitors in the market. So an example I like to give of that is financial services. It's really easy to get into the financial services of the investment advice business. All you have to do is call yourself an investment advisor, and there you go. You can start in the industry. You don't have to have any money. You don't even have to have a physical office. You could do it from your home. One of the things that makes it less attractive to get into the financial services business, though, is there's so many financial services companies that are already out there. There's so many people that would love to help you invest your money, find different insurance products, find different CDs or mutual funds to invest in. There's so many that it's not very attractive to get into the financial services business because there's so many competitors there already. So it could be a question of cost. It could also be a question of how crowded the industry already is with competition. Is the market attractive? So if you can still, basically, if there's still a lot of money to be made, even though there's a lot of competitors, it may not be that big of a barrier. If costs are high, but profits are extremely attractive, then there may be investors around the world that are willing to invest that upfront capital in order to get into an attractive market. Threat of substitutes. So the fourth of these five forces is, are there other ways that customers could be meeting their needs other than with the product in hand? So an example of a good example of this right now, I think, is actually the competition between laptop or desktop manufacturers to have a certain amount of memory space in the computer. So it's been a competition for a long time. Who has the most memory? Is it 10 gigs? Is it 100 gigs? Is it a terabyte? And that's because for the last 30 or 40 years of the personal computing business, we save our files on our local computer. Increasingly, the world is moving towards cloud computing. So a substitute for that memory on your laptop is storing things in the cloud and not even worrying about saving things to a local drive somewhere. Another example is transportation industry. So cars are a substitute for airplanes. Airplanes are a substitute for cars. You need to get from one place to another. There's multiple ways that you can do that. Each of them is a substitute for the other. So certain industries have higher substitutability than others. And then finally, how intense is rivalry? This is the fifth of the five forces. First and foremost, how many competitors are there? The more competitors there are in a certain industry, the more competitive it is in general. If like the financial services industry, again, like I talked about, has so many different competitors in it that each individual firm is really hyper competitive with all the rest. It's a highly, highly competitive market. The other markets may have less competitors, but you also have to ask yourself, how devoted are the companies in that industry to fighting with each other? So, two examples. One is not so much companies, but countries in this case. You guys familiar with the acronym OPEC? Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Basically, there's only so many countries on the planet that have oil reserves. Some countries have oil, other countries don't. So there's a relatively small number of countries that decide the price of oil, decide the supply of oil, and sometimes they can get together and agree amongst themselves, okay, we're only going to supply 50 million barrels a day, and because of that, that's just going to raise the price up to $80 a barrel. Other times, they may change it to greater supply, and that makes the price lower. But they basically all talk to each other and agree what the price is going to be rather than hyper competing with each other. Google and Microsoft, as a different example, in the browser industry. So there's only two real players in the search engine business, Google and Bing, and Google's a lot bigger than Bing. And so it would be really easy for Microsoft and Google to just talk to each other and say, okay, Google, you guys keep 70% of the market, we'll keep 30% of the market. We'll all make our prices for advertising on AdWords or on the Bing equivalent of AdWords really high, and we can all make a lot of money. We both make a lot of money. But that doesn't happen because Google and Microsoft hate each other. They're hyper competitive with each other. They're devoted to competing against each other. So even though there's a small number of companies in that industry, the rivalry is still quite intense because the companies are devoted to competing with each other. This is a diagram of Porter's Five Forces that comes out of your book. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide, but there is a nice diagram of this in your textbook. Key success factors. So another thing that is important to know about an industry, I actually switched this up for you guys. It used to be part of the external analysis portion of your case analysis template. It's now part of the internal analysis portion because I want you to use it in combination with the benchmarking tool that's in there. So key success factors are the things that it takes to be successful in a certain industry. They tend to be the same for all the businesses in that industry. So competitive elements most affecting every industry member's ability to prosper. So things like, on what basis do customers choose between competing brands or sellers? So do customers, do they choose based on price? Do they choose based on brand loyalty? Do they choose based on certain differentiated features? Depending on what that is, if customers decide on price, then you better be able to have a low price or you're not going to be competitive in that industry. If competitors decide on brand awareness, you better have a really good brand marketing team to build up the image of your brand. And if customers decide on differentiated features, you better be able to have really good product development people that are going to come up with differentiated and unique products that are better than the competition. What resources and competitive capabilities does a company need to possess and be competitively successful? So, again, if customers are choosing on the basis of brand, then a resource or competitive capability that you need is to have competent brand marketing people in your organization. And any company in the consumer products business, for example, has to have competent brand marketing people. What does it take for a company to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage in its industry? So, the idea of sustainable competitive advantage is that you create a product or service that's different than the competitors, and it stays different. That it's hard for the competitors to give the same product or the same service because it's something that's unique about the service. So either it has a really high brand identity, so people that like Nike shoes like Nike shoes. They're not going to buy Adidas just because Adidas is cheaper. They like Nike, period. Whatever it takes for a company to be able to create sustainably different products, whether it be brand identity or differentiated features, that's an important key success factor to consider in determining key success factors. So key success factors tend to be the difference between profit and loss in the company. If you're good at the key success factors, you're going to make a profit. If you're not good at the key success factors, you're probably going to be losing money. And there's a number of different areas that there might be key success factors in. So one of them is technology. Another is manufacturing capabilities, distribution capabilities, marketing related things like brand identity, like we talked about, skills related knowledge, key success factors. So sometimes the particular skills and abilities of your workforce are a key success factor. Organizational capabilities, sometimes the way your organization is structured, its geographic reach, things like that are important key success factors for an industry. And then there's other types that don't fit into those categories. All important to determining the overall. All of them are industry-wide things that everybody in the industry has to be good at. So, with the time we've got left, it's only 3:25, so we got a little time. I want to talk a little bit more about each of these. So, driving forces, first of all. Somebody in here, tell me the name of the company that you want to research or the industry that you want to do for your case. So your team has to pick a company that you're going to focus on for your case analysis. Anybody decided on a team yet, or on a company yet?
Macy's.
Huh? Macy's. Okay. So If we go back to these databases, there's a couple ways to search on information about driving forces for Macy's. So we could go back to Mgmt Online, and so click on Mgmt Online, and then and then just put the name of the company in here, Macy's, and hit go. Macy's Corporate Services, Macy's Credit. There's a lot of different Macy's in here. Let's check out Macy's Corporate Services. Subsidiary of Macy's Inc., Cincinnati, Ohio. Industry code 452210, department stores. Okay? So, based on that number right there, we can search for reports that are about this particular industry. So, if we open up a different window, it'll make it easier. Go back to the library website. Go back to the database list and databases by title. First Research Industry Profiles is a database that I want you guys to use for your homework assignment. So you're going to go to the letter F and then click on this first one here, First Research Industry Profiles. And that pulls up a search engine where you can either search by the name of the industry or the code of the industry. So we just went and found Macy's, and we found that their code is 452210. So if we type in here 452210, enter. Department stores, quarterly update, 27/7. That's pretty, May 2017, that's even later. So if we click on all of these results here represent PDF documents that are a report about the industry. And they come out with these reports every quarter, every year. So when you go to this database, I want you to find a document that's relatively recent. So don't open the one that says 2010 or 2005. Try and find one that's in the last couple of years. So this 2017 May is pretty recent. So we click on there. It pulls up the report on the department store industry. If we scroll down, to about the middle of the document, you see there's a little blue area that says critical issues. There's another blue tab that says business challenges. Another tab that says business trends, and another tab that says industry opportunities. I want you to go through and read those sections, and then pick the three forces which are most, you think are most relevant for your industry there, that are going to change competitive conditions in your industry over the next 1 to 3 years. So browsing this right now, just taking a look at the titles, which ones strike your attention? That's, what's your name again? Dina? Christina. Christina, you said Macy's, right? So which of these topics tends to stick out to you as something that sounds important? Private wellness brands, smaller store formats, branded partnerships. What do you think? Maybe some more stuff up here. Expansion of supercenters, changing the retail landscape. Okay, so Walmart and other discount retailers have fundamentally changed how other companies must operate to survive. Discount department stores dominate or hold large shares in many major retail categories, including groceries, apparel, toys, and pet care products. Aggressive pricing and relentless promotions depress retail prices, increase pressure on margins, and have resulted in bankruptcies and closings of both mid-sized and large competitors. At the mercy of companies like Walmart, suppliers may alter products, packaging, or purchasing and delivery terms to maintain relationships. So, having listened to that and your own opinion, what about the changing retail landscape is going to be different in 1 to 3 years?
Just in my own opinion, and after reading that, I can just think about how many stores are closing right now in the department industry.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about how the market has changed based on technology and how you can shop online versus going to the store. Promotions are a big factor in that as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like it. So, to go back to the case analysis template with info sources. You scroll down until you get to driving forces, and you're just going to pick driving forces and copy and paste them into here. So if we go back to this report, Changing the Retail Landscape is the title of the driving force. So we'll copy and paste that right here. And then the description of that driving force. Copy. Paste in here. Now, after that, I want you to, first of all, change the font so that it's Times New Roman 12. Oops. And then you'll see here, whenever you copy words from a PDF document to a Word document, it tends to screw up the character return on the lines. So after you copy and paste, you need to go in and clean up the words so that they are not on funky different lines. There we go. And then you'll do the same thing for 2 other driving forces. And then you're done with that part of the tool. Make sense? How about another company that one of your groups is going to focus on? How about just a company that you think of, regardless of whether you're going to do your homework assignment on it or not? Wells Fargo. Okay, the banking business. So for Wells Fargo, we could either go back to Merchant Online and type in Fargo. Wells Fargo and Company. So you'll notice here, industry, commercial banking, NAICS 522110. So in the case of Wells Fargo, you would want to take that number, 110, type that in here. Oops. Interesting. So this time the number didn't work, so now we have to type in the name of the industry. It might be under a slightly different number. So if we type in banking, for example, investment banking, mortgage banking, banks and credit unions. That's probably a good one. So 2014, 2015, use the 2015 one for now. Opens up, same thing. You're going to scroll down to the right section, read the business trends, the business opportunities, those other sections, and then pick which driving forces you think are most important. Porter's 5 forces. Somebody give me another type of industry or the name of a company. Huh? McDonald's. Okay. So McDonald's is in the fast food business. And if we go back and look at those 5 forces and answer the questions, how many buyers are there? A lot or a few? A lot. Billions and billions served daily. And how easy is it? How easy is it to go from McDonald's to like Burger King? It's easy. So that kind of makes buyer power moderate because there's so many buyers that tends to make it low. But the fact that it's really easy to switch from McDonald's to somebody else gives buyers a little bit more power. So it's probably moderate. Supplier power. Who do you think the suppliers are for a company like McDonald's?
Tyson.
Huh? Tyson, yeah, the chicken. So how many companies are there like Tyson that supply chicken? A lot. And is it easy for McDonald's to switch from Tyson to one of the competitors? Huh? So again, supplier power is going to be pretty low because there's so many of them. Each individual one doesn't have much power, and the switching costs are also low. Okay, makes sense. Threat of new entrants. You think it's easy or hard to get into the fast food business? How much money does it take to get in? Well, you gotta have the location and all the supplies and stuff. So yeah, it's not as capital intensive as yes. What's that? Yeah, but it's still a not insignificant amount of money that you have to pay. No, so it's not as bad as the aircraft business, but it's not as easy as the financial services business. So, and how about bandwidth? Do you think is there still space for more fast food restaurants? Yeah. Okay. Like, what would be a good kind of fast food restaurant that doesn't exist right now?
Healthy one.
Healthy? Yep. And what?
And cheap. Cheap has to be the key word in that one.
Healthy and cheap, okay. So there's space for more types of different products in the fast food business still. How about the threat of substitutes? What would be a substitute for fast food? Yep, home cooking. So would you say the threat of substitutes is high or low? Yeah, it's pretty easy to cook at home. I mean, I personally like eating fast food. I don't like to cook very much, so it's more work to cook, but it's pretty easy to do, and a lot of people do it, so that's a pretty strong substitute for fast food. And then rivalry. How many competitors are there in the fast food business? There's a fairly large number of them. So given the fact that higher numbers of competitors usually means that the industry is more competitive, that tends to state that competitive rivalry in the fast food business would be high. So this is going to be moderate, low, moderate, high, high. And each industry that you assess, no matter what the industry is going to have a profile of high, low, medium for each of these. So that is the concept of 5 forces. How about key success factors? So let's talk about another industry besides fast food and besides banking and besides department stores. Somebody tell me another kind of company.
Google.
Huh?
Google.
Google. Okay, so search engine technology. So if we ask these questions about Google, on what basis do customers choose between competing brands or sellers?
Ease of use.
Ease of use. I would almost, does anybody in here use Bing? Okay.
On accident.
Do you use Google more than Bing?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that?
Nobody says being there.
I think in the case of this industry, it's a tremendous brand advantage. Like there's Google and there's everything else. So,
I use Google and Safari about just about the same.
okay. Who does Safari? Huh? Okay. So it's Apple with their own search engine. Okay, so, but you still you use Google and
Yeah, well, like with Safari, if you don't have the Adobe Flash Player up to date all the time, then it just doesn't let you do anything. And with Google, it's just there.
okay. So, resources and competitive capabilities that would be necessary for success. You talked about the Adobe Flash Player update being a problem sometimes with Safari. So maybe ability to quickly update software is a resource or a capability that all the companies in this industry need to have. If there's some or compatibility with more forms of software. So I think one of the reasons that Google doesn't say that is because Google will use the older version of the Flash Player, and Safari has a little thing in the code saying it needs the latest version of the player. So a differentiator would be programming your code so that it accepts a broader range of players. So that's an example of key success factors in the browser industry. It's 3:44, 1 minute before time to be done. So I will see you guys on Thursday, and yeah, that's it. We're gonna rearrange seating on Thursday to sit with the groups. That helps me memorize your names more. So I want the groups to sit together. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Does he not have a group yet? Okay.
Because you call until you have
Okay. Tell me again his name.
Muhammad Khamis.
No, Khamis. Okay.
Yeah.
And Yashar, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So you are group H. Okay, I added him to your group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with Louis.
Huh?
Louis and
Yep.
there's like fourth person.
Fahad Al-Raji.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I have a question. For the global business.
Yes?
Yeah. How will I get access?
I send it to you on email.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. And
Okay.
I sent you the professional plan.
Okay. Yep. Who's next? Sure. There you go, man. No problem. Who's next? No problem.
Simba is leaving the group too.
Huh?
Simba, the third one in our group,
Okay.
is leaving our group to another group.
Okay.
So actually, we are just
Only two.
What group is he going to?
I don't know. Simba.
Eric Garza's group. Okay, group J. And what's your name again?
SIMBR, last name PHUR.
Okay, you're J now. Okay. Email me to remind me. I'm going to assign other people who don't have a group yet. I'll add some people to your group. Okay? Yes.
The website, I open it here. But how you look to the company registration? Which part?
Find your NAICS code.
Because I try all. Okay, cool. I write my.
And then you can you can either write the name of the industry, not the name of the company.
Oh, okay. I gotta find it. Thanks.
No problem.
I'm staying with you.
Okay.